On January 15th, 2022, one of the largest Plinian eruptions ever witnessed occurred in Tonga at the Hunga apai volcano. And it happened not without warning, but at a scale that was unpredictable and unprecedented. Keep your eye at Hunga volcano. The eruption was so massive that initial estimates were off by a factor of 80%. No one could understand how such an abrupt paroxysm could have made it so high into the atmosphere, and in this case, into the stratosphere. The volcano eruption, it is estimated, went as high as 55 kilometers into the stratosphere, higher than any volcanic eruption ever known in modern times. The Tonga eruption was so intense it caused the atmosphere to ring like a bell. Another phenomenon that has been heard of but unheard of at this scale. The ringing occurred all the way to the antipode and back and forth multiple times over a period of 5 days. The sound of the eruption was heard as far as Alaska, making it the furthest sound ever heard at a distance. And the Tonga undersea volcano eruption released up to 18 megatons of energy, which is 120 times more than the initial estimates. Can you see how off the analysis was? And now, just over a week later, still very little information on the eruption. But the conclusion one day ago is that it was about 1,200 times more powerful than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. And you can see here from a satellite in space, not only the curvature of the Earth, but the extent of the ash cover in the stratosphere, the aerosol injection, the massive scale. The SO2 alone reached Africa in just 6 days. And in fact, is circumnavigating the southern hemisphere, which is cooling as we speak. Now, the dramatic changes at Hunga apai. This is what the island looked like a week before the eruptions began. And now, nothing more than 2 small chunks of rock, smaller than the initial Hunga apai and Hunga Tonga. The entire island blown into the stratosphere. And that's in fact what happened. A half a cubic kilometer blown into the stratosphere in 10 seconds. The most energetic eruption ever witnessed, ever observed, of any eruption ever in history that we know of, going back 1 million years. The amount of material ejected in just 10 seconds here is almost equivalent to the entire Mount St. Helens eruption, which lasted for days. That's how spectacular this eruption was. Now, how big was the Tonga eruption? Well, size and scale we can talk about, explosive nature, height, megatons. But it's very hard to bring this into volcanic explosivity index because the index does not have the nomenclature for this type of eruption. If we're talking about just ejecta alone, well, the 10-second eruption that was the highest ever witnessed would be VEI4. But if we consider the Plinian nature and the height and the size of the mushroom cloud, this brings it up into the ultra-Plinian category of VEI6. So clearly we're going to have to settle on VEI 5 here. But all the links will be below. Now, if we just want to compare the eruption to the size of Spain and Portugal, it's about the same size. About the same size as the UK. Would cover all of Florida, half of California, all of Cambodia, Laos, and a portion of Thailand, or all of South Korea. This was a massive eruption. And we're not arguing that. What we want to know is what the real effects to the Earth will be. We already know this is going to cool the planet. Many people are saying it will not, and they are incorrect. There is a 100% chance that this will cool the planet, period. The amount of ejecta into the stratosphere in such a short period of time is unprecedented. It has never been witnessed, ever. And in fact, the Tonga eruption was so powerful, scientists need to propose a new ultra classification, and they have proposed ultra Surtseyan. Now, this, in fact, was a Plinian eruption, but albeit a 10-second Plinian eruption. Most Plinian eruptions last from 4 to 100 hours, like Mount St. Helens and Nova Rupta and other Plinian eruptions. This one lasted just 10 seconds. And it had to do with phreatomagmatic interactions, meaning the ocean water dumped into the magma chamber, causing the violent explosion. And this was termed a Surtseyan eruption, an explosive style of volcanic eruption that takes place in shallow seas or lakes. When rapidly rising and fragmented hot magma interacts explosively with water and with water-steam tephra slurries. And that's what we had here. Only Surtseyan eruptions aren't Plinian, and they don't go up near space. So this is definitely a Plinian eruption and a Surtseyan eruption at the same time. I like Surtseplinian, but they're suggesting ultra Surtseyan. But that doesn't capture it all. This is a Plinian eruption. This is high up into the stratosphere with a mushroom cloud, which is the definition of Plinian. Now let's talk about the massive Tambora stratovolcano and compare it to Hunga Tonga. Tambora was 7 on the VEI scale. It reached 40 to 50 kilometers, the same as Hunga Tonga. Hunga Tonga was 35 to 55 kilometers. We don't have any more data there, so unfortunately. But as far as Tambora is concerned, the amount of stratospheric injection was about 10 or 20 times more than Hunga Tonga, according to the data, or was it? There's no way to know right now. And let's compare it then to this is the Hunga Tonga data. So according to the USGS, the Hunga Tonga came in with a surface wave magnitude of 5.8. Shock waves reported around the world. An estimated 500,000 tons of sulfur dioxide, which is about 20 or 30 times less than Tambora. And they say here that it is unlikely to have any global cooling effect, except that it will have cooling effect on the southern hemisphere. Okay, it's not going to cool the globe, but it's going to cool the southern hemisphere. Thanks, Wikipedia. Okay. Well, let's just compare it to Mount St. Helens. Mount St. Helens ejected about 3 times more material over days, but it never made it to the stratosphere, so there was no cooling effect from St. Helens. This is a very unique eruption with a half a cubic kilometer of tephra erupted in 10 seconds. Now that puts it in the VEI 4 category, high 4. But it was a Plinian eruption that went up higher than ultra Plinian. It went up 50 kilometers, 55 kilometers. And the tropospheric injection was substantial, and the stratospheric injection was significant, which puts it at Plinian, VEI 5. So there's no way anyone can say it's not VEI 5 based on stratospheric injection, tropospheric injection, and plume height. In fact, it should be VEI 6 based on plume height alone. But the stratospheric injection was not substantial, in my opinion. So had it been substantial, or if we get new data, and some people have sent me their own maths that show that 400,000 tons of SO2 is an underestimate by a factor of 50. So we are living in a global warming world where they may want to quash this information. And we've certainly seen the evidence directly from space. The ash from space. We showed you pictures just moments ago. And we'll leave you the newest update here coming from the Smithsonian to bring you up to speed with what they're talking about there. But as we finish, and we're going to be covering this, in a media release 5 days ago, the government of Tonga reported that ashfall and tsunami had damaged all of the islands. Thankfully, international humanitarian aid had reached the islands the day before. Al Gore's a whore. Now we're going to show you some satellite images of the aftermath of Tonga and every single island covered in ash. Like this one, including the forests. And these islands covered in ash. There's the before, the glorious nature, and the after. Here's the before. Beautiful. After. Now take a look at how much tsunami damage is going on here. This house is burnt and completely missing. Before and after. Before and after. And here, beautiful island with snorkeling. And it's going to take a while to recover from that. Before and after. Take a look at this beautiful lake and after, covered in ash. So our hearts and prayers go out to the people of Tonga. And we don't want to listen to you, Ryan Reynolds. So just to recap, the Tonga eruption is one of the most unique eruptions ever observed in scientific geologic history as far as volcanology is concerned. It may very well be the tallest eruptive plume ever witnessed because of the explosive nature of the event. 55 kilometers would in fact be the highest eruption crest in any observed volcanic eruption in history. The fact that this only took 10 seconds to get up that high and only a half a kilometer of ejecta was pushed into the stratosphere. And you can see that stratospheric plume moving right there. That's all in the stratosphere, folks. Let's go back there. That's really nice. So that lower part's in the atmosphere. This upper section is stratospheric aerosols rapidly moving to be incorporated in the stratosphere for years, especially in the southern hemisphere. Most significant eruption, a Plinian eruption that's ultra Surtseyan, just occurred at Hunga, Tonga, apai, which is now 2 islands instead of 1. Hope you got something out of the video. Don't believe the hype, it's a sequel. Use critical thinking. Come to your own conclusions. And in just a few months, we will know the cooling effect of Hunga Tonga. Stay tuned. And that's a boom. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Share this with like-minded people and be safe. We love you.